Hello there, and welcome to another episode of News from the Gelding. Okay, so we're going to be reviewing another book today. This one is Gene Wolfe's The Fifth Head of Cerberus. Now, this is another dip into the Masterworks collection. I bought 3 of them recently and I'm just reading through them. This is the second one, so I'm going to attempt a review of it. There will be some spoilers, I imagine. I haven't prepared at all for this, other than, well, bugger all actually. So it's probably going to be a bit crap. But anyway, it's my take on it, and there we are. The one bit of preparation I have done is I just dipped into the Amazon review page just to see what other people thought of it, because my thoughts on it were slightly confused, shall we say. Okay, so we've got a fairly divisive book here, I would say. We've got a spread of reviews from the 5-star rating of 58% all the way down. We've got 4 stars, 3 stars, all the way down to 1 star. The funniest review I read was a 1-star review, which went, "This book has graphic sexual content in the first chapter. Sexual content with an insect. The book is too long. There's also a graphic scene with torture. I would never recommend this book to anyone." Now, whoever wrote that review has read the wrong book, because there's absolutely no insect sex scenes. That may have elevated its worth to me slightly. I'm not saying that I didn't like this book, but there are some problems, at least to me. If we go to the 5-star reviews, there's people calling it a masterpiece, a work of genius, that kind of thing. And so my alarm bells start ringing in my head that I've obviously missed something that's glaringly obvious to perhaps more cultured, more intellectual readers than myself. That's highly possible, because I'm not that clever. But I've read a good deal of science fiction in the past, and lots of other things, quite complicated and deep readings of things. But this one had me slightly baffled. So anyway, all right, I'll just say it's composed of 3 novellas, and the book, the meat and veg of the story are sprinkled around these 3 apparently disparate stories. I'll read the blurb just to give you an idea of what we're dealing with here. On the twin colony planets of St. Anne and St. Croix, civilization is a colourful mix of the archaic and the futuristic, with slavery and advanced science coexisting. The shape-shifting alien inhabitants of St. Anne were exterminated by the colonists, but some believe that instead they killed the humans and adopted their identity. In 3 interlocking tales, the secrets of this strange society are gradually unravelled. The secrets may be unravelled, but it's done in a very subtle way. Perhaps non-existent way. But a number of the 5-star reviews I read, they said that once they'd finished reading the book, they started reading it again for the pure joy of it, and also to try and extract some more information regarding what the whole thing's about. So one reading evidently isn't enough. But I won't be reading it again to try to solve the mystery of what the book's about, because you get to the last page and at this point I was more or less certain that no conclusions were going to be drawn, and I wasn't disappointed. There was absolutely none. In fact, the last paragraph was so bewilderingly obtuse that I almost chucked the fucking book out the window. But that said, I did enjoy it, and I'll explain why. The writing itself is good. It's poetic at times, nicely descriptive, and it paints an interesting portrait of these 2 very different worlds. The first story, now the spoilers are going to be abounding here because I don't know what to talk about and what not to in terms of spoiling it for you, but there's no way I can spoil it entirely because it's more or less impossible. Even if you read the thing a few hundred times, you may not glean everything that the author intended. The first story, the first novella, is called The Fifth Head of Cerberus. And it's about it's set on one of these twin worlds, Saint Croix, I think it is. Yeah, I kept getting confused about which planet was which, but this one has a lot of. It's the more technologically advanced world, shall we say, with cutting edge science, but set within the kind of ruins of a post-colonial French settlement. So quite grand buildings. So there's quite a strange mixture there. So this is one of the clues right off the bat to what's going on. The blurb is suggesting that the colonists were all killed at some point and shapeshifters took their place. Now this is the first little clue that I considered. But anyway, I'll talk about that later. I probably won't. I'll probably forget about it. And we follow two young boys, mostly from the perspective of one of them. And as we later discover, they are clones of who they discover to be their father, who is a kind of is a scientist or a geneticist, perhaps, and also a brothel owner. Now that was a very strange thing to come to deal to terms with. I thought, what the hell's going on here? So that there's probably a clue there as to something. Someone could perhaps explain to me the significance there. So this father figure, who is actually the same person as these two boys, proceeds to do experiments on them. In terms of trying to work out what they're thinking about, or in terms of their identity, perhaps, what they're dreaming about, what they think about things. Quite cruel, really. That was quite an unsettling part of it. It follows them up to a certain point in their lives, and the story concludes with the fact that the boy that you follow mostly is imprisoned. I think for the murder of his father, this cruel scientist. Some of his time spent in prison and coming back out to run the brothel again. That's the first story. The second one takes quite a turn, really. So the second one's called A Story by John V. Marsh. Now, the connection here between these two stories is this chap, John V. Marsh, who we meet briefly in the first story, who is an anthropologist from Earth, who has come to the brothel to perhaps savour the delights of the brothel, but also to seek out another famous anthropologist that lives there, the sister, or I think it's the sister of the mad scientist. I don't fucking remember. But she has this idea, this theory, that the aliens killed all the original settlers and that everyone is actually aliens. They just don't know it. They've become, these shape-shifting aliens have become them. There's an interesting, so right off the bat, we know what the thing's dealing with when it gets to that point. This story is apparently written by this chap who perhaps favours this idea. Now, this story, although fictional, apparently, is definitely based on an experience of some kind. And it's dealing with the original inhabitants of St. Anne, so the original aliens, the Aborigines of that planet. A very, very strange story indeed. Quite hard to read, but also quite interesting for that change of pace and being told through the eyes of an alien. So there's language there that you might associate with any native or Aboriginal ancient civilization, with calling things by their names. People don't have names as such. They call them like I don't know, steep rock, or you get the idea. I've forgotten all the bloody names, but so that was interesting. And again, there's clues about shape shifting, perhaps. Because it follows two boys, and whilst they're called different things, their roles are kind of interchangeable, and by the end you don't know who's who. So again, we're dealing with questions of identity, uncertainty. Uncertainty prevails throughout this book. The last novella is called simply V.R.T. And this is a collection of journals, again pertaining to this chap Marsh, who the journals detail his exploration of the work of St. Anne, trying to work out whether these Aboriginals still exist in present day. But at the same time, he's been incarcerated in prison on the other planet, St. Croix, and he's being interrogated. So it switches between his ruminations of his current imprisonment, what he was doing on the other planet, his discoveries, perhaps, and also an officer who's reading the journals and deciding the fate of this chap. Very, very is all over the place, that last that last book. And I suppose I enjoyed the first two stories the most. The third one was very confusing and at times didn't make sense. But anyway, the blurb is giving you a good indication of what's going on here. We never know entirely anything. It's all up in the air. It's up for you to determine what's going on. But there's lots of clues throughout. I was aware of certain clues after having read the blurb and having a modicum of an idea of what the thing was about. But I'm sure there's far more. There's symbolism and multi-layered ideas here that you can spend half your life thinking about. I personally like to pick up a book, read it, and get nice ideas going around in my head. This one let me think quite a bit about what's going on, but it also frustrated me a great deal. So one of the things was at the beginning, this didn't confuse me, but this is so the fact that the high technology set in the ruins of the post-colonial French settlement, everything is kind of run down, but you've got the cutting edge science on one end and crumbling library that's not used on the other. Now this suggests to me that indeed a certain amount of the population are these alien shapeshifters, because they're mimicking humanity but without the thought processes and the drive to seek knowledge in the same respect. So that's why some of it's crumbling and some of it, I don't know. Fuck it. I'm rambling already, and this is going to be utter crap, isn't it? This video, but I'm not going to keep re-recording it, and I'm not going to overly research this. I just read a book and talk about it. It's awful, obviously, but would I recommend it to you? Yes, I would. It's worth a read, but be prepared to be frustrated. But I mean, some of the reviews, people they absolutely fucking loved it and read it perhaps every fucking day. I don't know. Certain authors develop a cult around them, and people love their work and they find things, and they can invest more time in perusing their various works. I'm not sure I'll be jumping back into his work anytime soon, and I know as people listening to this, well, they probably won't be because I hardly ever get on listening to it. But if they did, they'll be saying, "Look, you're missing out, old boy. You need to get back into it. There's hidden depths." But the thing is, a story needs to carry you. It needs to carry your attention, intrigue you enough to keep reading. It has to be enjoyable to a certain extent. This felt like a chore, towards the end especially when things don't make sense and I can't work out why the hell certain passages were there. It's not that it's been overwritten. It's just that it doesn't follow a logical path in my mind. I folded over one page. I don't know why, so let's have a look. I think... See, this is during the first story. Yeah, and it was just a passage that I thought wasn't written very well. So I thought I'll just read it, and I can't even remember it, so I'll just read it. It's probably pointless. This is where he talks to customers, Phaedria said. If he's trying to sell something, he has his people bring them down one at a time so you don't see the others. But you can hear the dogs bark even from way down here. And he took Papa and me upstairs and showed us everything. I don't even know what the hell that was about. I don't know why I followed. Anyway, there we are. There's a bit of the book there. Right. Okay. There we are. Shambles. But yeah, bollocks. Yeah, there we are. Thanks for watching. That's the Fifth Head of Cerberus. One of the best reviews you will find on YouTube, no doubt. Yeah. No, fucking awful. I've been listening to other things recently on YouTube. People that do it very well, they're talking about film and books and going into really deep detail, metaphysics, existentialism, all kinds of things. I can't talk about that kind of stuff. All I could do is a kind of gestalt, kind of what it made me feel, what I understand of a work based on the experiences I've had in my life, which is really what the majority of us do. I mean, this is a postmodern book. It contains lots of things, lots of questions, but no answers really. We're left to work it out ourselves. Why are my legs moving around so much? I don't know. I think it's because I'm going a bit fucking mad. But anyway, there we are. There's my review. Cheers for watching. See you next time when I'll be reviewing another book. Maybe. Say goodbye, Sir Peter.
That was an utter shambles.
Yeah, boy.